Hello everyone. Today I've got three more amazing horror books for you. One of them is a pre-order, but the others are out right now, including one that at the time I'm making this video just came out today. So these are all brand new releases. These are ones you're going to want to read. They take certain tropes and just turn them on their heads, turning them inside out, and I think you'll absolutely love them. Before we get started, I want to remind you that I have horror books for sale. You can purchase those at the link in the description for $1 each. Be sure to check out my Patreon to see what you can get there, including free short horror stories every month. And be sure to pick up your copy of a Read More Horror t-shirt. It helps support the channel. It looks good on you. Many colors and sizes available. There's a link down below for that as well. All right, let's get started. All right, so the first book I want to talk about today is called Readings from Cursed Room 301. This is an anthology. It's coming out in July. Pre-order link in the description, of course. I do want to say right now, full disclosure, I have a story in there. My road trip turned backwoods horror story is included in this anthology, but I am writing this because we received our EARC copies, and I'm taking myself out of the equation to talk about the rest of the book. All right, so I'm not just saying it because my story's in there. I would have loved this one regardless. So I just wanted to put that out there. But this one is a great anthology because we were tasked with writing about horror tropes and doing something different with them, taking the traditional things you might read in horror and turning them on their heads, turning them sideways, turning them upside down. And man, some of the authors in here, they took that to the next level. I was so happy when I was reading the rest of the stories in here. I'm glad mine is in there, but man, you know how you get imposter syndrome? I was reading some of these going, oh man, why didn't I think of that? They were just excellent. You got the bloody, you got the creepy, you got the ones that just kind of wiggle around in your head and don't want to let go. You got all different kinds of tropes in here, no matter what kind of horror you're into. These stories, you're going to find some in here that you'll absolutely love. But here's the thing about this book. Joey Powell from Mad Axe Media, he's the one behind it, the editor. The thing about this book is that it almost reads like a novel, almost, because there's a setup to it. And the setup is, this is taking place in a horror writing classroom, and all of the authors that participated in the anthology are the students in the classroom, and their stories are being judged by a professor, Professor Prim. Now, Professor Prim, he's a stoic, stodgy kind of guy. He's a literary snob. He thinks genre work is beneath him. So what is he even doing there in a class like that? Well, you're going to have to read to find out. Because after each story, we will hear from Professor Prim as he critiques and criticizes the subjects of each story. But as it goes along, in these intervals between each one, we're going to find out that this is not an ordinary classroom, that the students, or the authors, it almost feels like, as a contributor to the anthology, that I'm also a character, kind of. It kind of gives me that feel. I really love that. But that they are not ordinary students. And these stories are not just ordinary stories, because things are going to start happening. They're going to manifest the horrors in these stories, and they're going to start affecting Professor Prim. So you're going to go and see him from this proper, stoic, stodgy kind of snob, and pretty soon he's going to start breaking down. He's going to start experiencing some of the things happening in this book, and pretty soon he realizes he can't leave. There's something much more horrific going on here than just reading these stories, and you're going to have to read it to find out exactly what's going on. But I love that concept because it does have the feel of a novel when you're reading, but they're all separate stories from all these fantastic authors, and the whole thing is great. And again, I'm not just saying that because my story's in there. I absolutely love this anthology. I highly, highly recommend it, of course, and there's a pre-order link in the description. And next we have the Z word. Do you know what Z word we're talking about? No, not zebra. If you guessed that, you were wrong. But yeah, this one is great. This is a very queer, very fun, but very brutal and bloody novel about the beginnings of a virus that takes over this small town during Pride Week. And yes, it turns human beings into flesh-eating monsters almost. But are they really zombies? That's what I like about it, because technically they're not dead. They didn't come back from the dead to eat people's brains or anything, any of the traditional things you might associate with zombies. But there's a virus, and later in the book, in a really big twist, by the way, we're going to find out exactly how it started. You got to wait for that. But in the meantime, you got all these people at this Pride event. When this starts happening, and they can't figure it out. They just know that some of their friends are missing, some of their friends are dead, they've been chewed alive, they've been eviscerated, and they're thrust together to try to figure out the ones that aren't infected, to try to figure out what's going on as it gets worse and worse and worse. And here's the thing, I've said this before, normally in horror books, I don't like romantic angles thrown in unless they are pertinent to the story. A lot of times they're just thrown in there because, well, I gotta have a romance, and it's just not my thing. But this one, there is romance. Our main protagonist and her ex-girlfriend, they're very awkward now because something has happened between them. You're going to have to read to find out. And whenever they're together, of course, it's a small community in the small town, the small Pride community there. But they are going to be thrown together in this mix, which makes for some very awkward but kind of funny scenarios sometimes. But this relationship is going to be so important when we come to that delicious twist in the book about how this started, because then it becomes heartbreaking. It becomes, it's just fantastic. There's a lot of feeling and a lot of heart behind this book. The author did a fantastic job with all of these different quirky characters. And like I said, while it is a fun read, and it really is, I mean, you just want to sit there and keep reading because it's so much fun. But it's also very disgusting at times, very gross, very brutal, very bloody, all the things I like. And she manages to put them all together in this fantastic zombie, for lack of a better word, zombie novel. And it just really works. It works wonderfully. I had a lot of fun with this one. Of course, I highly recommend it. And there's a link down below where you can pick up your copy right now. And next, we have We Are Not Alone in the Dark. This one is a great coming-of-age horror story. And it concerns a trope you don't really read about that much in horror. Normally, this is saved for science fiction. But alien abduction. This is an alien abduction story set in a small town with this group of teenage boys. And a 15-year-old kid is at the center of it. Like, he sees this bright light that paralyzes him at night. And he sees these creatures coming for him from the light. And then he sometimes wakes up in strange places. And he doesn't remember anything except for that bright light. He kind of knows what's going on, but he doesn't remember anything that happens after that. Nobody believes him, of course, because they think he's just stressed, because he does have a kind of messed up home life. You know, his father was very abusive to him and his mother, and his father is now in prison at the beginning of this book. His mother is kind of a workaholic. She has to work all these strange, weird hours just to make ends meet, just to put food on the table, so he's kind of by himself. But he does have this core group of friends, and these characters are really where this book shines, because they're portrayed realistically as 15-year-old kids. You know, they worry about bullies, they worry about girls, they have their stupid little inside jokes and insults and things they can get away with each other that nobody else would be able to get away with, you know. And you can tell that they're very much bonded, that they've been friends for a long time. And even though his friends don't believe in the alien thing, they are supportive of him. They will give him the benefit of the doubt, and so they decide they're going to come up with a plan and try to stop these things from happening, even though, his friends don't believe it. But they're going to find out that it's very, very real. And these are not ET friendly aliens here. These are not your friendly bunch. They're not coming down here to have a conversation and get information. They are very much malevolent toward human beings. I don't see a lot of alien abductions in horror stories. Like I said, that's usually sci-fi or fantasy. But this one works really well because it does have those shades of Stephen King, when he does come into age stuff like in It. But he takes this whole trope. He gives us enough familiarity, familiar things that we would associate with UFOs and alien abductions. But then it gets twisted around and kind of find out other people have experienced that in this town. Other people know about the existence of these things. But are these people foes or are they friends? And some twists and turns in here too, and so you're going to have to decide for yourself if they're friendly or not. But you'll figure it out once you read. And it's going to end in a climax that is simply brilliant, fantastic. I love the whole thing. I love UFOs. I was a big X-Files fan. And so to find a book like this that really does it and does it right while giving you this awesome coming-of-age story in the middle of all this turmoil was absolutely fantastic. I love this book. I highly recommend it. And of course, you can order your copy. It just came out today as I'm making this video. So you can pick up your copy today at the link in the description. And as always, I want to say thank you for taking some of your time and spending it here with me. And until we meet again, keep reading spooky, my friends.